There will be an opportunity at the end of the meeting for anyone who is not on the agenda that might have some item that they wish to bring before the council for our attention and consideration. You'll be able to do that at the latter part of the meeting. Also, each of our council members receives a package of materials to sort of prepare us for the meeting, background information and so forth. A copy of those documents is located on the table to my left. If someone wishes to examine that material, they're more than welcome to look at it. But otherwise, we'll proceed with the meeting. That being said, I will ask our clerk please to call the roll.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphreys?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
And Mayor Morgan?
Aye.
And let the record reflect that 4 council members are present. Mrs. Lowe is not with us tonight.
Well, she is with us. She is with us, or present in absentia, I think we decided was the term. But she is here in sort of the electronic world, and I presume, I can't see her, but I presume she's waving to the crowd at this moment. All right, very good. We're pleased that all of us.
You can wait back.
She is legally monitoring the meeting, I think is the correct terminology.
Very good, but she'll be able to monitor but not vote, as that is the physical requirement, or presence is a requirement of that under the law. But we're very pleased to have all of us here in one form or another. Okay, Mr. Bob Howard is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if all would rise.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council, we have 3 sets of minutes this evening for our consideration. We have the August 6, 2012 work session meeting minutes, the minutes of the August the 6, 2012 regular meeting, and the August 15, 2012 work session meeting. First of all, are there any corrections or additions to be noted from those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that all 3 of the minutes will be approved as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Rosenbaum, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphreys?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. We have a couple of employees on our staff that we wish to recognize this evening. Mr. Kelly, would you care to take us through that, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 2 or 3 folks listed tonight. Only one was able to attend, and we're very proud to have him in attendance tonight. So I would call upon Mark Godby, who is our finance director and our town treasurer, to come forward. And Mark, judging by your hair, you know how long it's been. Mark has been with the town of Abingdon now for 20 years, here in 2012, and he's done an excellent job as the financial director, and then became the treasurer for the town, I believe about 6 years ago it's been now. So with that said, I want to come down and I want to present Mark with his 20-year plaque along with his lapel pin.
Very good. Okay, could we slide over here and have one more? Look at all. I'm not sure. Oh, wow, there you go.
Taking it to a new level.
Here, here. Very good.
Smile, Kathy.
Okay. Mark, thank you very much for your service.
Do you see still? Do you see still?
Thank you, dear.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Yeah. Move it down just a little bit.
Put it on my briefcase. I don't have any.
There you go. That's good.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would also point out that the two employees who could not be here tonight are Shane Wright, who is with our sewer department, and Carol Dixon, who's with our horticulture department, and both of those individuals have served for a period of 5 years with the town. So my congratulations go out to them in their absence.
Very good, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. We also have special recognition and presentation this evening, and we have several groups of young people who are with us tonight. We're very pleased to have you. And the first that we wish to introduce and recognize are the members and coaches of the Abingdon Little League group, 12-year-old team that recently completed in the state tournament. And I believe Mr. Kevin Christie is sort of here to introduce everybody this evening.
Yes, sir. Guess I can stand right here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir. There's a microphone right.
I guess with about 200. Does this one work?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With about 200 Little League teams, all-star teams through the state of Virginia in June, we ended up finishing third in Portsmouth. I don't know if any of you followed the Little League World Series. You saw Japan beat a team from Goodlettsville, Tennessee. Well, Goodlettsville was the U.S. champion, and the only team that beat us was Great Falls, Virginia, out of Fairfax. That was the only other team that Goodlettsville lost to during the All-Star season. But they set several state records. Hit 7 home runs in 1 inning. I think it was about 27 for area and district, wasn't it, Stan? 27 home runs in 7 games. They did not allow an earned run or any runs through area or district play. Not one. I don't even think they realized how close they were. Just one more game. Like I said, the only team that we lost to was Great Falls. And if I'll introduce them, just stand up. Will Harless, Thomas Francisco, Nick Hardesty, Kevin Lee Christie, and he is 13 years old, James Compton. They ask for a birth certificate every now and again. He is 13.
Wow.
Brett Boyd,
Wait till he gets his growth.
Bryson Thomas, another birth certificate, Matthew Hunt, he is 12, 13, and Kyle Matney. My 2 coaches were Stan Bars and Scotty Boyd. And everybody stand up, guys. We really wanted to thank you all for the donation. We were really in a bind, the way the weather was, and we didn't have any time for fundraising. It come down to 2 days, where most of the time you have 2 weeks. And we had 2 days to get ready to go to Portsmouth with 11 of them. And the lodging alone was around $6,000. We ended up staying for 8 days. So all the boys and myself are very appreciative of it. I'd like to thank you.
Well, we're very appreciative, too. You folks have done well and made us proud, and we are certainly pleased with the success that you had in this state tournament. And the other thing that's pretty clear to us is that we can expect great things out of you when you guys move up to the playing for the Falcons here at the high school level. And it's nice to see the groundwork laid and, you know, a good promise of the future. I do happen to have a few lapel pins for you guys to wear on your uniforms. Let me come down and give those to you.
Coveted.
Yes, excuse me, the highly coveted official Abingdon lapel pin. And I may have to give them to the coach rather than get everybody
Do you
to.
want to do a picture with the council?
Yeah, let's do that, please. Could you all come out here?
We're all about the pictures. Come on up, y'all.
Come on down. Yeah, you can sort of line up along here.
Coaches too. How are you? Come on.
Hey, y'all watch the Little League World Series?
He's gonna fall over.
One more. Long
Are you gonna hold Kathy again? You gonna hold Kathy up again? That's kind of unique. I thought that was clever.
All righty. Okay. Very good. And you get one.
Nice MLB mesh looking names on the back. Come on, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and I have one other comment after we get their picture. We're looking. Thank you. Coach Christie, you mentioned something to me about one of the fellows here that we ought to perhaps know for the group.
Nick Hardesty there had one heck of an inning for
Remind me, which one's Nick? All right, raise your hand here, Nick. All right.
One inning, we were talking about 7 home runs in one inning, which was a state record. This young man had 3 of them, 2 of them were grand
Thank you.
He had it dialed in.
All right, thank you again. Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Coach.
Thank you, dear. Sure, thank you.
All righty, very good. Okay. All righty, now the town of Abingdon, Virginia has a lot in common with Lake Wobegon, Minnesota, in that all of our children are above average. And we recognize athletic accomplishments, but we also definitely value academic accomplishments. And I'm pleased to recognize another group this evening, and that is the folks who are with the Technology Student Association from E.B. Stanley Middle School and Abingdon High School. And Ms. Charlene Gross, are you here?
Yes, it's,
Okay, would you come forward, please?
well, we actually did 2 projects we're working directly with the town. And so we wanted to share them with you because I'm not sure you know about them. And so I just figured we brought this is some of the group that we took 29 kids to the national competition in Nashville. And if I could have the state officers, we have more state officers from Abingdon High School than any other school in Virginia. So we have the state historian is Gretchen. Come on up. And the state sergeant at arms is Adam. And the regional president, which is on state council, is Curtis. Luke is now at college, but he is the immediate past president. And for the second time in a row, Tess McNerlin is a national officer, and Tess is national reporter. So we now have 4 Abingdon High School students who are on state and national council. So that's pretty cool. And then I wanted to show a couple of the projects. We're not going to really bring them up. Like we have the middle school website. If you guys can come on up here. The middle school website placed first at the state competition and placed 6th at the national competition. We'll do the middle school on the high school website, excuse me, which is 2 members have gone to college, and 2 members are still here. So Curtis, if you would step out, and then Eric. Eric and Curtis were on the high school website team. They were first place in states and 9th or 10th. 9th place at
Very well.
We are dealing with, one of our kids is at urgent care right now, and some are at sports and some are at family activities, so we don't have all of our national kids. But Peyton, if you would come up, he was on the global manufacturing team, so you have to show him the toy. This is where two kids from 3 different schools across the state work together, so hold your toy up. So you can see it. They have to produce a product, they have to do the advertising and the packaging, and they have to show that they're communicating across the state. And so that placed, Peyton, were you first place at state? First place at state. And 10th place at national.
Very good, sir. Well done.
And we will have chapter team, which we have 6 kids from the middle school chapter, which we have 3. Garrett was on it. 3 of the 6 are here tonight. If the 3 of you would step forward. This is a parliamentary procedure. And so we read and study Robert's Rules of Order, and we practice and have a good time with it. The neat thing is that 4 of the 6 of our competitors made the top 10 of the 200 kids that take the test. So they were in the very top of, so that was 2/3 of our group did that. And then we placed 10th place, first place at states, and 10th place at nationals, which is, that's sort of a coveted kind of, like, if your chapter team does well, you've got like the best chapter. It's a similar product for them. So that's some of the, just an overview of some of the projects that we've done. We wanted to especially spend some time showing you the 2 projects that we dealt with the town. So if we could have the environmental team come forward, and that's where Jackson is at urgent care, and Zachary's at football practice. You guys have to come up here. So you guys stay, you guys can sit down, except for you 2, and then you 2. Kirk did that separate. This is a book you can look at. This is what was a copy. We have that for you guys. We have the original. That was turned in for the judges to judge. And we did a project studying Wolf Creek.
Oh.
So I'm going to let you guys talk as much as you can. And talk. I'm trying to talk loud. You got to talk loud. You can do it. So Curtis is going to pull up the PowerPoint. Once you turn in the book, they take the top 12 projects at the state and the national level. And if you make the top 12, then you will go in front of the judges and present PowerPoint, which I think we're going to get up there in just a second. And this is travertine. It is a rock that we think is part of the problem at the muster grounds. I have it in a baggie because you can see it's crumbling, so someone doesn't have to back into it. So that is travertine.
It's a great chance to hit us with the block.
You guys want to talk about anything about the project? What he's getting at?
I will. Doing this project really opened my eyes as to how there are creeks like this that you wouldn't really think were very bad for the environment.
Yeah, that's,
We can work on if we put forth effort. So,
We all know that if you get down to the Chesapeake, the waters are messed up down there. But here in Abingdon, which is just a little town, we have work to do. So, first, can you advance it while they talk about it, please? Curtis?
yeah, we got it.
Oh, I got it. Guys, just to both of you talk a little loud, okay?
Well, there's a picture from 19.
I think it works, but you have to talk right now.
That's an older picture of the creek, and that's history of the creek. It was taken in 1931 and everything. And then here's the creek now, and it's stating the problems that we have at the creek. And there's where we were testing. We used a machine to take like the pH, the temperature, the turbidity to see the levels of everything.
Those are the testing results. Can you point out what really stuck out in red?
In the red is the points that we found were very high or very low, so we were very concerned about that.
Can you add to it?
You can see all the little things we have done to the creek. The first picture is when we planted trees on the side of the creek to help shade it. And on the second picture, that's a close-up picture of it sprouting. The third one is when we cut off some debris of a tree that was about to fall. And the fourth picture is when we were planting wildflower on the side of the creek for the roots to keep erosion from messing up the creek. Well, these
Go back to the last one.
These are our findings. Turbidity, conductivity, and pH rise when it rains. Turbidity increases as sediment flows into the creek with runoff. Conductivity reflects that there are more dissolved solids after it rains, and the pH was significantly higher after storm runoff events.
Technology has a lot of negative impacts on the pH level, and there are examples of different sorts of things that have negatively impacted it, and agriculture is a lot of what it is. And then the travertine, which is the rock that we had up there, we think that there is travertine under or around the creek, which it's in the area, so it's like limestone, which will make the pH worse. Bloodworms are things they're worms, they're little, they're red, and you don't want to find them in a creek because that shows that the creek isn't very healthy, and that's mostly what we had in Wolf Creek, which alarmed us because we talked to other people about what they think we should have, and they said that that's definitely a thing we should not have in the creek.
This is a sediment load increased by technology. As you need to build more houses, that dirt comes off from when it rains into the creek. The same with agriculture. When you're plowing, that can get into the creek as well. And when people are mowing their yards right up to the bank, that's very bad because the root system underneath can prevent erosion. And that little system of plants that can prevent erosion is called a riparian buffer zone.
Here are different pictures from upstream. At certain places, people are allowing for their mowing up to the creek, but there's still a small amount of a riparian buffer zone, and there are a lot of rocks and pebbles throughout the creek until you get to our testing site. And we want rocks and pebbles where we are because it helps with all of our different issues with the creek.
These are the little creatures we found at Wolf Creek. The top picture are the bloodworms, and the second picture are the little clams that we found. Third picture are minnows, and they were probably trying to run downstream away from the pollution.
These are the things that you want to find in a very good and healthy stream. We went to Damascus to look for insects that we thought, because that's very good fishing ground up there. So they said that you would want like stone flies and a lot of things like that, because they showed that there is a very healthy thing, because they're not very tolerant for unhealthy water.
And then these are our solutions.
I'll take that. I'll talk about that in a second. So go to the next page. And talk about, well, that's what we want.
We'd like to thank everyone on this slide for supporting us, and Miss Christine Hannon helped us a lot with our research and finding out how we can help the stream and help Abingdon be even more beautiful than it is already. So.
If I can, I'll close them up. Thank you. You guys did a great job. They have not looked at this project since the end of June. So they actually did really good remembering all the stuff that they did, because they're now in a new school year. But to give you a brief overview of what we found at Wolf Creek is, yes, the bloodworms are not a good thing. They're indicative of organic content. And there's 3 possibilities for that, which would be cows upstream cows in the water upstream, or leaking septic tanks, or possibly the 80-year-old sewer line running through the creek. So, and I know that's not an easy thing to replace, but they're definitely the presence of the bloodworms is not a good thing in the creek. As Curtis, Gretchen, can you back me up to the 6 pictures? The sediment problem is, that was a surprise to even the environmental people we worked with. Because in the first 5 pictures, which are all taken upstream, there is some pebble base, and the little animals live under the pebbles. And that last picture, that is right there at Wolf Creek where the muster grounds is, and it's a very thick, there were times we had to yank the kids out of the creek because they were so stuck and they had to concentrate to keep the boots on. So because of the lack of the riparian buffer zone, if there was a riparian buffer zone, we do think it would be a brief amount of time for heavy rains to wash some of that sediment downstream, and we would get the pebbles back. So it looks like it's a more site-specific problem than any of us thought it was. So that was really interesting. And then if you back up now to the pH, it's the picture with the red numbers. That picture, all the numbers are pretty typical for a creek except for what's in red, which is like extremely high, or actually in some cases the highest one is a dangerous level, a fish-killing pH. And we don't have a good answer for that. That's typical science. It's not as easy as you'd like it to be. And that's where the travertine comes in. We had such a wet winter that as we walked across the muster grounds to get to the creek, we had to wear the boots just to walk across the grass. It was so wet. You know, acid rain comes down, that's acidic. We're talking a pH up the roof. And so we think the possibility for that would be the travertine. If there is travertine in the soil, which is in this area, it's not in too many places in the United States, but we have it. If we have it, there's not a lot we can do about that. As the limestone gets into the water, it's going to make that pH go up. And what we may do is, for fun sometime, after we get some really heavy rains and we know it's been sitting there, it would be interesting to go and test the pH and to see if it's gone back up in March, or February, March, when we started testing it. We tested over about 8 months of the year. We tested for a long time. So that's what we found out. So I don't know if it's helpful, but there it is.
Well, thank you very much. There's several of us that are keenly interested in Wolf Creek, specifically as it runs through the muster grounds, and that site I know has been a little bit complicated over the years. One of the reasons it has some sediment in it has been as a result of the beavers that have lived there, who have basically made dams and slowed down the natural speed of the water that comes through there, and you've ended up with a lot of deposit of sediment along there. And then there's other practices. One of my dreams for Wolf Creek is that at some point I'll be able to cast a fly out there and catch a trout, and I think that is a realistic goal for that stream in the future. And we certainly appreciate the interest that this group has shown in the stream. It really helps to bring public awareness of both the problems and possibilities of that stream. It's a very pretty place through there, and I think it has potential to be cleaned up. But thank you for your work, and thank you. We're very proud of the success that you guys have had. Our kids have done well, both academically and athletically, and some have done very well in both categories. We're very proud of all of you, and thank you very much. Now, I think I have given lapel pins to many of you guys.
We have them.
Is there anybody that needs one?
Yeah, does anybody not have an Abingdon pin?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
you might also want to mention the West
Raise
End
your hand if you
receptacle
don't have an
project.
Abingdon pin.
Because she had
So
mentioned
we have two that don't have them?
Okay, come on up here. Let me just, all right. Let me-
No, it's red. Abingdon pins are red circles. We have one more project that we did, the high school did for the town.
Okay, and have you guys toured our wastewater treatment plant?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Now, who needs the pins? Okay, you need one? Okay.
But I'm embarrassed to mention, we had one first place. It's the middle school video
You
won
got
first
one? Now,
place.
let me get another one or two.
Yes, I'm forgetting that one, our first place.
Okay, and who else am I lacking? Oh, there you go, sir.
All right, I'm gonna let you guys take over. I think you have more than one. Curtis, you gotta get the movie.
Okay, so we've got this project.
It's Alright, I guess I'll go ahead and tell a little bit about what he's about to put in. This is the high school video, and basically the format of this competition is you're given a topic for the year, and our topic was suspense. And we sat there and thought about it for a really long time. We came up with a lot of different ideas, and we finally decided that we wanted to tie in history somehow, and we wanted to make history come alive through this film, because we thought that that wouldn't be what the judges were expecting, and they'd get a lot of like horror films and that kind of thing. So we wanted to take it a different direction. So we met with Mr. David Winship, and I know that he's pretty involved with the town. He is a history genius. He loves history. That's his passion. Yes, definitely.
I will tell him
we
you
thought
said
that
that.
he would be a great contact for us to speak with on that. And we threw around a few stories in the area, and we finally decided on a story about a wedding that occurred also at the muster grounds. It was during the time of the Civil War. Yeah. It was the Battle of Saltville. They were coming through Abingdon, and they were just pillaging everything that they came in contact with. And they actually came to the muster grounds house the day that they were having a wedding there. And you want to take it from there?
I say we let him watch the video.
Okay.
Is the video gonna have a speaker? Will it be loud enough?
Will it,
I don't know. I don't know what the deal is for that.
is there a speaker or?
I don't know. And also, we're given a slot of 5 minutes. So that's kind of rough, because there's a lot to get in there that's important, and you have to really prioritize exactly what you want to be in the video. And it takes a lot of work to edit and put together and make a script for it and all that kind of stuff. So everything that's in here is completely done by us. And also, we could get into the muster grounds house, but it's not furnished. So instead, we chose to use the Fields Pen House as the interior of it, and then the exterior shots we actually used the muster grounds. So we talked to Donna Marie Emerson at the Fields Pen House, and she was great. She let us get in there and use costumes and all kinds of stuff. So we just kind of pulled our resources and came up with this video. So hopefully we'll get it playing.
Hang on.
It's not gonna play.
We're trying to figure out how
Can we
to.
switch it to my computer because it plays on mine?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I guess I'll go ahead and give you a quick
Yeah.
overview of how the video went. So as Tess said before, the soldiers came through and they just pillaged this wedding. And actually they took the wedding cake, which back then
we had some difficulty trying to figure out how they did this, but they put the wedding rings in the cake. And so when the soldiers took the wedding cake, they took the rings as well. So actually, years down the road, there was 2 men on a train. Huh?
It explains that to men.
Okay, if we can get the video going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Donna Marie's actually going to explain what happened, so that's why I stopped it, because that's kind of
Yeah.
like the grand finale type part. It's really cool. It's a true story. It's based off a true story. There's a few things that we changed up just to fit in 5 minutes, but I'm sure that's the case with most reenactments. Hopefully we can get it started here.
Okay.
Thank you.
And along with this, we had to do a whole storyboard. We had to sketch everything. We had to come up with a script for everything. We had to get each person that appears in the video to sign a waiver that we could use their face in it. So there is so much that goes into these binders. So this was probably the easiest part, the actual disc and video. But the binder was the most work. There's a lot that goes into it.
We were working on it like an hour before
Yeah.
we turned it in the book competition. So
There's a lot of things that happen and go wrong. You just kind of have to adapt. I think we're waiting for a computer to turn on.
We're getting there.
Well, while we're getting there, let me mention one other thing that Mr. Humphreys reminded me of just a minute ago regarding the first project, and that is, you know, I alluded to the town's wastewater treatment plant. It used to be that Wolf Creek really had a series of pollution sources, and our town wastewater treatment plant was one of those sources. It was, you know, at capacity, and if we had a high stormwater event, there would be problems. But we've put in a state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant, and it's really done more than just about anything to improve the water quality of that stream all the way down to South Holston Lake. We're very proud of what we've accomplished through that. So.
We're coming.
Okay, yeah.
In doing the environmental, the one at the Wolf Creek, the kids loved it. It was a total of 6 kids who worked on that project, and it was a really neat hands-on for them. It was neat as a teacher to see education work in a practical manner. I mean, they were good at the testing, they had to do the research, and then they had to talk with the people in the community. And that was fun as a teacher to see the kids have to do so many different things to get it accomplished.
Excuse me.
Honey, it's never looked like this for me. Eric?
Looks like the resolution isn't set properly.
This is why we have our TSA guys.
Yeah.
this is what they do for.
We do the video and they fix it.
Mom, try opening it a quick time.
Boys, feel free to come on here.
I don't know, ask them. No. Do you upload it to YouTube?
Have you put it to YouTube?
No.
No, we have not done that quite yet.
Well, guys,
Oh, I'd be so it's adorable. It's
well, I'll tell you what, we would really like to see it, and perhaps, yeah, if you would, I would
Or you
appreciate
can
that.
actually keep that copy. We have plenty more.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sort of curious why it's not working on my computer. It's always working on my
Well, we'll let you figure that out another time, but. Yeah, we figured it out.
I'm sorry.
Well, all right, so
That's all
well, I
right.
guess I'll have to
Obviously,
give you
you
the
guys.
ending this time instead of let you see it. The ending is 2 men were actually on a train and they started talking, and one turned to the other, says, "Well, where are you from?" And he's like, "Well, I'm from Abingdon." And the guy's like, "Well, I feel really bad about this, but back in the Civil War, I went to Abingdon and I raided a wedding."
And I took the wedding cake, and in it I found 2 rings. And the brother's like, well, that's awesome because those are my sister's wedding rings. So the wedding rings came back here to Abingdon. So,
Well, and is that part of it true?
yes,
Yeah.
that is
Wow.
true.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, we congratulate you on your success, and how did you do with that at the awards? How did your thing come out?
We got first at
First at
state, and then we went to the national competition, and I think, did we place? No, not
We did not place top 10, but we were close.
Well, that's all right, as you should have been. Well, very
You
good.
guys have the notebook, it is for you.
Okay, we do.
It's in the notebook.
Oh, okay. I gave it back. I didn't think it was the track. I gave it back.
Well, thank you very much.
Just, Lisa threw out.
All right. Very good, and I wouldn't be,
It's fun to work with the town. It's a lot of fun.
well, thank you, and I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see you again later in the year.
This is the wedding video, and then that's, thank you.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate it, and it's a pleasure to see all the success that you guys have had with this. Okay. Do we want to get a picture or anything? Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much. We also have tonight a request from White's Mill Foundation, and our old friend and associate, Mr. Bobby Engel, is here to represent the White's Mill group this evening, and I think you're going to give us an update as well on how things are going with that.
You didn't have to say old, Mr. Mayor.
Well, you're no older
Because
than...
I'm here on 2
Yeah,
Kings.
you're not as old as I am.
Doesn't mean that I'm old.
No, it sure don't.
And Kathy, you can see me, you can't ask questions, right? I can't, my hearing's not good, so I'll have to. The last time I was here, you asked me too many tough questions, so I just soon, my hearing is bad as everybody knows. But first of all, I appreciate what it is that you all do. I've been there and done that for 12 years with the county. It's not an easy job, but what you all just did was the one thing that I enjoyed most while I was on that board for 12 years, and that was rewarding and recognizing our young people. You know, this is an old phrase, but they are our future. They're going to take care of me and you and all the rest of us when we get older, and we need good athletes to bring recognition to our county and our town. We need good academics, and I don't know how many of those pins or awards or rings or things that I've given out over the years, and I was always so proud. I remember the first one that I ever went to was not long after I was elected. Abingdon High School, in fact, had their awards banquet, and Ken Matthews and I went to that. And you know, it was so impressive to see the number of students who had excelled not only at athletics but also academics. You know, I never forgot that one particular one. It was just a great, you know, occasionally you'll see a class come along that is an excellent class. I've seen it in several schools, and that was an outstanding class. And I don't remember what year that was now, but I'll get on with the business of what I'm here for. Have any of you been out? I sent Greg as much stuff on Friday. It may be a little late, but have any of you been out to the mill in the last few days?
Yeah, I have.
What did you think?
No, it looks like a different place.
I didn't believe it.
Really
I went up
coming
there
along.
the other day, and almost, you know, after all these years, you know, we finally is coming together. It's happening, what we've been talking about for all these years. And you give it another 2 months and you won't know it. What I'm here tonight to ask for, as I know you already well know, White's Mill, you don't need a lot of background on it, but, you know, for Abingdon and Washington County both, particularly I think Abingdon probably gains more revenue from tourism from White's Mill than anybody else does. I noticed that you have it on most of the flyers you sent out. It's pictured in many, many places, and it's very well known, very good tourist attraction. People come here for I don't know how you put them in perspective as far as rankings, but I would think that, of course, the Creeper Trail, the Barter, the Martha Washington, White's Mill are probably your top 4 tourist attractions, in my opinion. We had, I think, year before last, and help me a little bit here, if you would, was it 12,000 visitors year before last? Did we get a count from last year? We don't know. It was probably down a little bit due to some things going on out there. We have tried to raise money from various sources. We got turned down by Alpha. They had just simply run out of money. Of course, the coal businesses, I won't say they run out of money, but that part of their money they had run out of it, already committed all of it. Coal business is tough right now, as most of us know. And some of you may very well wonder why I waited until this late date to come to see you all for some assistance, but I did the county the same way. I waited until their very last budget hearing, and I did it on purpose. I wanted to make sure that everybody else that had to have funding, schools, all the other commissions, boards, committees, had what they had in place in order to operate. I did not want to jump in front of anybody. This has been a long, ongoing process. But going back to last September, I received a $43,350 grant, or I should say our board did, from the Virginia Tobacco Commission. The one thing that was there that was going to make it a little bit tough was that we had to raise a match for that. And I thought, well, I've been to town, the county before. We have been for years, and I want to make that my last choice, but that was the only choice I had. So I went to the Board of Supervisors. They gave me $21,675, I believe it is, and I told them that I would see the council about the other $21,675. And we have already picked out a color. This is just for informational purposes. I've picked out a color for the siding on there. The last we could find was that, and there were just a few particles of paint or stain left on that thing, but it was more like a whitewash than anything else. Now, we're not going to whitewash the building. That's not what I'm saying. We picked out a stain there. The vote was nearly unanimous from our board members to use what is the name of that stain? Maritime white. And what it is, it does look like it's been whitewashed. It's got some aging material in it, and it will age well with time. We figure reapplication to it, which will be a lot easier than doing it the first time, would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 9 years that you might have to go out there and spray it back. But we're putting new windows in it. But what the Tobacco Commission gave me is to be used for one thing, and one thing only, that is to get the mill wheel turning. Last time I was here, I remember very adamantly that was what this council wanted to see, to get the wheel turning, and it is very important. I think that once you do that, you're going to see a big increase in your tourism. The people want to see the mill wheel turning, and we have good estimates that tell us that if I have this money, that we'll make that mill wheel turn. And if we don't, I'll have to leave the county. And I've heard a few people say that's probably a good idea, but anyway, that's what we're asking for. And I think it will be money well spent. I know that I ran the mayor to the dentist office the other day, and he had said that some of the question. Well, I think in fact maybe Greg Kelly told me that you all had committed $13,000 or so for us this year, but we're going to have that for operating money. We didn't get much from the county in their regular budget. Our insurance alone is $7,000 out there, and we don't have any money to mount to anything. which has been the case for the last several years. We just barely get by. And of course, right now our grinding has had to stop, so we're not selling much product. We don't make a lot of money on our product anyway, but I've been talking to Kevin Costello back here. Finally got to meet him tonight for the first time. We had talked by phone. He has an idea that could be helpful to all of us. Kevin, did you want to say a few words about it? It's a program I know all of y'all are familiar with, and I'm not going to take all night here, but Kevin and I have been doing a little talking about this project and how it might work in with something y'all got going.
Good evening. Mr. Engel and I spoke last week, and we talked a little bit about tourism and his project and some of the ways that his project could kind of fit in with two things that we're doing right now in tourism. And one is the Rooted in Appalachia campaign. We're working with Appalachian Sustainable Development to put together a regional food brand initiative where we're connecting visitors, locals and tourists alike, to connect them with some of our unique dining experiences where they have farm-to-table menu items. And there's certain criteria, and Mr. Engel and I spoke about that, and there are possible opportunities for the mill to fit in with what we're doing with that. And then we're also working with a national tour operator, receptive tour operator, a Mid-Atlantic receptive tour operators, and they're doing a crooked road itinerary. Oh. And one of the stops, we brought them into town probably 8 months ago, and it's now coming to fruition where we're actually starting to see tour buses coming. And one of the stops on that crooked road itinerary is at the mill. So we are connecting with them in terms of tourism and promoting their assets, which is one of our assets. So I'm not necessarily up here asking you to fund him, but I'm here to tell you that it is definitely a tourism asset for the community, as you all know, and there are two different ways that we're working with them. And if they were able to see their project come to fruition, I think it would help the town and tourism. That's all I had to say, and I'd be glad to answer any questions about either one of those projects.
Any questions for Mr. Costello while we're here?
Thank you, sir.
Sure,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
But I hope that this will be, the last time I'll have to come see you for a while for money, additional money. You all have been very generous to us over the years to give us some operating money. Again, we need that money. I can't take that $13,000 and apply it to this. We just really don't have any other source to go to. I kept hoping some wealthy benefactor would come along here in the last 6 months and give me money, but the time is running short. Those things are good for a year, even though we can sometimes get extensions on them. That's not a guarantee. That Tobacco Commission money is about to run out, and it's been good to the county, and it's been good to a lot of people here, but I think it's just it'd be a shame to get all the rest of this done and not do the wheel and get the mill race put back to where it'll operate the wagon or the mill wheel. And Jennifer can go back to grinding. She'll have to grind for days to catch up, but we just need to get it done. It's been going on too long.
Mr. Engel, what is the time frame of your grants and when you have to have commitments and those
I
kinds of
need a
things?
commitment this month because September the 29th was the date that the grant was issued, and it will run out on September the 29th. Again, I apologize for coming to you. I know that the normal protocol is to go at budget time, but there was a reason I didn't do it, same reason that I didn't do it with the county. I wanted to make sure everybody else was taken care of first, and then we go in there because I felt like by the end of the time you get done with your budget, I did 12 of them, helped do 12 of them, then you know what you've got left that might be a contingency fund that you might be able to draw from. So I did that purposely. Now, you can chastise me for that if you want to.
Mr. Mayor, I did have one question.
Yes, sir.
Why did you stop grinding the corn mill? And
Well, actually, it's not totally stopped.
oh, okay,
We're able to do some, like we just ground yesterday.
okay,
But we have to clean everything to do that because of the work that's going on. So it's not at the same level.
okay. less production.
less production at this point.
And it's closed to the public at the present time. Won't be closed too long, but they're doing some work on the inside there now, and it's pretty dangerous out there if you get a bunch of people. You know, we knew there would be a period of time, and we worked with the contractor. The contractor's been very good to work with to make sure that we can leave it open as long as we could, but it finally got to a point here the other day where we said, you know, we need to shut this thing down for a few days here because somebody could get hurt out there. A lot of rusty nails, a lot of lumber laying around. We put in a new roof on it. So when we get done with what we've already got to spend, you know, we will have encapsulated that mill. You know, no more leaks, no more wind coming through there. That will protect that mill for many, many years to come. And that was the main point, but again, I just can't reiterate enough how important it is that we get that mill wheel rolling again.
So let's go over the situation. How much money do you need to get the big wheel rolling?
I need from you get the wheel rolling.
Yeah.
Okay, I got $43,350 from the Tobacco Commission. I'm just giving you these figures so you can figure my calculator's right. And I got $21,695 promised to me from the County Board of Supervisors. By the way, that was a unanimous vote. And then I told them that it looked like I was going to have to come to y'all for the other $21,675. If I don't get it, then I am not sure that I can get an extension on this. And I'm thinking that now that we are into the reconstruction phase, it would be a great time to go ahead and get this done. My guess is by the time our engineers and architects and everybody gets done, it might be springtime before we could start on it. But at least I would have the money available to do it. If we don't, I could stand a chance of losing it altogether. And I would hate to lose whatever the $21,675 and the $43,350 comes up to be over another $21,000.
Well, Mr. Kelly, do you have any theory of even what we have in the way of contingencies for council that's available?
I believe there's around $80,000. Is that correct, Mark? It's just somewhere between I don't have my budget report here in front of me, Mr. Mayor, but somewhere between 60 and 80,000 that the council has. One alternative might be that $8,000 could be committed along with 13 already appropriated just to be able to get it through to pass through the Tobacco Commission, and then the council, if deemed necessary, can come back and revisit the operational expenses at a later point in time. And I don't know what that does for you in terms of if you have other operational expenses already there, Bobby, or not. Operational money, rather, not expenses.
Our treasurer has been out of town for 2 weeks, and I tried to reach him today. He and I talked about that a little bit the other day, that, you know, I'll take what I can get, but it's going to put us in a real bind. When is our insurance due, Jennifer?
I don't know.
Our insurance, like I say, is $7,000. And we probably won't have enough money to pay that.
Oh, that's right, we had
That lump sum payment. That lump sum payment insurance.
Yeah.
Mr.
I'll
Mayor,
let you make the monthly payments. Believe me.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
according to this budget report on August the 16th, we have $127,761. I believe it was 80,000, and we had some extra money at the end of the budget.
So how much do you think we have, sir?
This says 127,761. It's on page 26, and it's the report dated August the 16th.
Okay.
9760 is the budget line, Greg. Council contingency.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
have it here in front of me.
It's on page 198 of your iPad
Okay.
agenda.
If I can figure out-
Mrs. Lowe, do you have a question?
I do. You know, I probably love Whitesville as much as anybody since I grew
fundraising efforts happen. And so my concern is, even if you get the mill operational, you're saying that, you know, there's really not much money to pay for anything else, and, you know, I mean, you know, I don't wanna sound like negative Nelly here, but, you know, it doesn't sound like there's enough financial support, even if you got the wheel operational, to guarantee the mill to be operational.
Well, Kathy, are you finished? I'll answer your question. We've tried some fundraisers out at the mill, and we've had them at other places. We had them at one out here at the center at the Catholic Church, a wine tasting. Very well attended. Our barbecues have been well attended, but at the end of those, you either break even or go in the hole every time. So, you know, we finally just decided, you know, it's not worth going through all that effort. And I can distinctly remember telling you the last time I was here, somebody asked me the question, maybe it was French Mower, I don't remember who it was now, but would that mill ever be sustainable on its own? And I said, probably not. I think you're looking at something that is it's a private foundation. It's not there to. I know that Mr. Miller and some other people make good money out there over their lifetimes of grinding, but you know the farmers don't go to the mill anymore. I can remember when all that stopped, and so there's nothing there that's going to make a huge profit for that mill unless you start charging, you know, $5 a head for visitors, then you're going to cut your visitation back. But we've not had any luck with fundraisers, Kathy, and I know you've been to some of them, but it's either break even or lose money.
The biggest concern I have right now, and you know this from local government, is that we have so many things that have lost funding. And, you know, even though it looks like we might have $127,000 in the budget, we have 2 properties that belong to the town of Abingdon that have some severe rot issues that we're gonna have to address. We've got a project with Art Theater that we haven't concluded yet, and we're still negotiating. And so I think the reason Greg asked if you could put that off by allocating operations with maybe a smaller stipend was because we have so many irons in the fire that the money that we have in contingency is so uncertain right now that $22,000 is gonna make a really big difference in our contingency.
Well, council, what's your thoughts about this? Mr. Berry?
Well, one comment, and I think Mrs. Lowe's comments are valid. It's early in the fiscal year, and $127,000 is not a lot of money. What I would encourage you is to reach out to Sarah at the Tobacco Commission and maybe a call to Joe Johnson, and maybe we could help you in some of that lobbying effort to see if you can get an extension to the tobacco funds. I know the town has a grant that's, 3 years old, Greg, that you got an extension to from tobacco.
Actually, we got the letter today that it was denied. So the extension was denied.
All right, well, there you go.
For that idea.
Well, that's
I should have asked you.
But it had been extended before.
It had been extended before, that's right.
But-
How old is this, just 1 year old?
Yeah, but the problem is that tobacco, there's fierce competition for that money right now, and the Tobacco Commission, I think this is the last year of grants through the Tobacco Commission, if what I understood in Roanoke a year ago was correct. I know it's the last year. I own some tobacco allotment, and I know that this was the last year we were to get anything, and they made that statement pretty well known last year, what funding would be available through it this year would be slim. And, you know, I'm terribly afraid that something that's more important in their eyes might come along. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot easier to do, and I can live with that. But if I lose that grant money, then where do I go then? Because there's just not money out there right now.
Well, I believe in looking at all your options. I mean, Terry Kilgore is a good friend of the town of Abingdon in Washington County, and he's the chairman of the Tobacco Commission. I would encourage a call to the chairman to see if there could be a one-year extension, and then perhaps if not, maybe you can get to Greg, and Greg has called us on occasions to poll the council in between meetings on funding, so that would be my suggestion at this point.
Well,
I don't know what the rest of them think.
Well, we have a meeting, we have a work session
Oh, that's
coming
right.
up.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. So we've got another, option where as a council, we could entertain this again. We're just a little, as Kathy noted, we're a little bit reluctant to commit, too far down the line because we are, again, early in the year, and we don't know what all we're going to have to do that. But I do think that we need to note a couple of things. We've talked in the past about the priorities of where we should put, money as far as our non-departmental requests go. And, there's two considerations here, one of which is that White's Mill is not physically located in the town of Abingdon, but yet we have also talked about that one of our priorities for non-departmental requests ought to be those things that generate tourism dollars and so forth for us. And clearly, White's Mill has over the years been a very strong draw for a lot of tourism-related activities, and there was a time, I think, in its promotion when it was, as you've noted earlier, right up there with the Martha Washington and other things as a place where tourists went when they came to Abingdon. And I do think the tie-in that Mr. Costello has talked about with our tourism department is something that's very significant because we're trying to really promote the local foods, the local branding, and so forth there. So I feel like there's several reasons that why it's appropriate to consider this. Mr. Howard, you haven't weighed in on this yet.
I've just been listening to the discussion, but I'm in agreement with Kathy. We've got a lot of projects that we have going on here in town, and although I know this is very important to the town of Abingdon, I don't know if I could commit the whole amount right now. I think we need to think about this and maybe address it at the
Well, let me, if you would,
Wait just a minute. Let's, Mr. Humphreys.
Yes, well, actually, I'd like to do a little background because there were about 4 people, Mary Stewart, Mark Hurt, Gene Neal, and myself, and Jim White, met years ago to start fundraising to try to buy the mill. It was this group's intention to try to buy the mill and then turn it over to people who were engineers and people who could actually do restoration. And then, as it progressed on and we were able to purchase the money, purchase the mill, then we did turn it over to Jim White, and there was Rock White and several other people who were able to do the intricacies that need to be done. And one of the big things has always been is the mill race. And the reason what happened basically is the mill was shut down, and while the mill was shut down, they did not keep the race open during the winter. There wasn't anyone to tell them to do it, so the race was closed and the race froze and collapsed. It's been kind of a bugaboo ever since because we've worried about getting that race back. And I have not been active in the foundation since the early years of it. But I also can see an opportunity here where that we could try to help if Mr. Engel thinks that they're going to lose that money on the Tobacco Commission, if they think this is the last year, and there won't be any more extensions, where that we could take the money that we already have in the budget for $13,000, add $8,675. That won't break our bank, $8,675. He could take the 2 and use it, and then come back later on if there's operational problems down the line. That would give you your match of $21,675, Bobby. And then if there was other problems, then as our year progresses, we could see if we had additional funds. Now, there's a very good chance we're not going to be able to have any, but that would make your match. And then maybe you're going to have to figure out something about fundraising or however that might happen. And I know because we did a big dinner at the Martha Washington Inn and had 250 people there. At the end of the night, I think we made about $400. And we were thinking we would make $5,000 or $6,000. It just didn't work. It's tough. And that was back in golly, Ned, 97 or 8. So anyway, the project's gone on too long. It's time to bring it down and land. It's time that we bring this in for a landing. I really would think that. I would hope that as a council, we might be able to support $8,675. He can make the determination of taking the $13,000 not operational expenses and using that $21,675 to do his match, and of course, that would be your choice. And then that would give him at least an opportunity so that he would not lose that.
What I was going to suggest, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, didn't know you were getting ready to talk, is that maybe sometime before you all have your next work session, let me talk to Terry Kilgore. Terry's a good friend of mine. And let me talk to Delegate Kilgore and Joe Johnson and see what they think about getting this extended. And then next year, if you remember, I've been here, I'll come back at you at budget time. It would probably be spring getting that part of it started anyway. We're going it's going to, the weather's going to change here soon. We'll have the outside of it done. And let me do that and see what kind of an answer. I just don't want to, I know that money is getting very slim, and I don't want to lose it.
Well, and I think that's a reasonable approach to it, because again, as you're noting, the work on that mill race probably would not begin until spring.
Right.
And by spring, we'll know where we're at as far as our contingency goes. We'll be in the budget cycle. And, but our meeting is scheduled for what day, Mr. Kelly? Anybody remember?
This month?
Yeah, the work session meeting.
I believe it's the 19th.
Okay.
So it'll be
What
non-voting.
day?
September 19th, 6:30.
It's a Wednesday.
I'll
And-
work with you all any way I can, and, hope that you all can work with me. I've heard some good proposals. I think the best one, though, is for me to which I don't know if the Board of Supervisors goes back along with us or not now, so, but that's, I just have to take
We'll
a chance.
look at it this way. We didn't say no.
Yeah.
I know you didn't. That's what I
And
appreciate.
that- That's the other point to say
Very easy
to
to
the
say
Board
no.
of Supervisors, there is some sympathy here for making this work.
Yeah.
And, and we have been good supporters over the years of this, but I certainly agree that it's, that it's time to, to wrap this thing up. And
It is.
I think it's also possible that your fundraising and other activities will improve when you actually have a finished product for people to come and look at and see and be in and, and take active involvement in.
We'll just leave it at that. I'll get in touch. I'll put in a call for Terry tomorrow, send him an email, and
Let us know what he says, or let our manager know as soon as you know.
Yeah, because it's going to leave you in the breach. I mean, that was a non-voting meeting, and that we had.
Yeah, but
Well,
we've done consensus
exceptions-
things before.
Yeah, and exceptions potentially can be made.
Right.
We don't want you left hanging out here.
I mean, if you'll just tell me it'll happen at the next one, I can inform the tobacco commission, maybe stretch it a little bit and say, yeah, I've got my match, but.
See if you can get the extension first. How's that?
Yeah, I need to see about that extension, because that would not hurt us, because as long as, and I know that my money is good with the Board of Supervisors until the end of June of next year.
Right.
And I've got that in writing, so I think y'all got a copy of it, so. But anyway, when I send whatever I send to Terry Kilgore, I'll copy you on it, Greg. And I appreciate your time, appreciate what it is you do. You do a great job. Town of Abingdon, most towns in America would like to be like this town, and I've made that statement a lot of times in my life.
Thank you very much, and we'll be expecting to hear from you in the near future.
Okay, thank y'all. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate you coming. Okay. All righty. Our next item is consideration of a recommendation by town staff regarding a plan of action for better use of the Abingdon alert system. Mr. Bailey?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. 6 years ago, when I came to work for the town a little over, I found the Abingdon alert system and the very nice servers that had been purchased through a grant, made available by the work of several, so that we could have an alert system for the town to notify people about emergency activities going on in our area and around the state. Interestingly enough, at the time that it was put in, it was an advanced system. But over the last 10 years, and as the result of horrible events that we're all familiar with, both in our state and nationwide, our system has grown less and less advanced, and newer and better things have been done. Now, there's certain things that we certainly need to do to try to improve what we're doing to try to notify people, whether it's a tornado coming into our area or a criminal escaping his bonds, or, you know, a simple matter of a road being closed and people needing to know that traffic is being diverted. We need to do a little better job letting them know in advance, and or at least as quickly as possible when an event is imminent. Some things that we want to do is improve the usage of the system that we already have, and that's step number one. I have in your packet the cards or a sample of your cards, and if you don't have one, I'll give you these and y'all can see those. I cut them out. We hope to put those, or we will be putting those in the tax ticket bills that'll be going out to try to encourage people to sign up for Ask Abingdon and Abingdon Alerts. And if you're not familiar with the differences between Ask Abingdon and Abingdon Alerts, Ask Abingdon is the system that provides information regarding the town, whether it be tax rates, when bills are due, how I can pay my bills, what's the law on dogs and leashes and things, that anything in general, when's the trash pickup, so on and so forth. All of that is in Ask Abingdon. Abingdon Alerts is the system that you can sign up to be notified when roads are being closed, when there's an impending weather event, when there is school closures and things of that nature. The unfortunate thing about our system that I've noted already is that it doesn't use texting, and that's the biggest issue. Currently, our system relies heavily on the phone call system and notification, and email. But as people have moved more towards texting as a means of communication, we need to look at options for that. So I've got a handout here for you that I'm going to give you, and y'all can look at these at your leisure, or keep it with your packet, and we can talk about for upgrading our system for that to improve it with texting. But another thing that is something that we want to begin immediately is the use of our old siren systems. Did I not give you enough? I'll give you one more. I think I've got another one in here. I've got one here, and
I'll give you mine and
I apologize. I thought I had handed it stapled enough together, but here's one more that's not stapled together.
Thank you.
As you're aware, we have our old siren system in town that has not been utilized for quite a number of years. In fact, I got a phone call today that a gentleman said he hadn't heard it since the 30s. So I don't know if that's true or not.
His hearing must have gone.
Yes. Yeah, I figured that was a slight exaggeration, but nonetheless, we want to try to utilize the system to notify people that there's an impending alert, and hopefully not only direct people to seek shelter in a weather event, but also to steer them towards their homes, possibly to the website, or possibly to the phone call-in system to get an Abingdon alert, to know that there is an impending danger, whatever type it may be. To utilize our existing siren system, we thought was a fantastic opportunity, and I still think that it is, not only for the nostalgia of the old alarms, but because there is a great possibility of new alarms. And I've given you in your packet information regarding new alarm systems that can be installed to improve what we already have. So I'll just give you a quick rundown. In the last week, we've tested the old alarm system to find out what we had. The alarm at William King was very full of wasp nests and dirt daubers and a variety of other insects. But once we cleaned those out and we hit the button, it fired like a baby, and it was up and running in no time. We feel like with regular maintenance, that thing will run for another 100 years. It's a solid piece of machinery. There's absolutely no doubt about it. We have one more unit exactly like it that was taken off of the fire station several years ago and was put in store at the Public Works, or actually at the buildings behind Latcher Field. And we weren't sure if it was going to work, and we did a little bit of tinkering with it, but sure enough, we took it down to the town shop, and this morning we were able to hook it up to three-phase power, and that thing cranked right up like it had never slowed down. So it's in perfect working condition, nothing in the world wrong with it, sounds blow your ears off. So it's a great piece of equipment. So we have 2 double sirens, one to be utilized at its existing location at William King, and I recommend that we place the other siren back at the fire hall where it was, utilizing the existing infrastructure that's in place, and just make sure everything's ready to click the button when necessary. Currently, those alarms go off with the radios that the police carry and the firemen carry. And by sending a tone, it can be fired at any time of emergency just by a simple process. We did look at the siren in front of the Bella's restaurant, and we found that even though it had been repaired some years ago, it is in broken condition today and probably will not fire. And as I've had Federal Signal look at the configuration of that particular horn, it's really not big enough to do what we would want it to do. It's a very small alarm. And so what I've done is in your packet there that I just gave you, there is a pricing sheet for 2 new sirens. The 2 sirens that we would recommend coming from Federal Signal would actually be loud enough to cover the entire town. And I was going to show it to you downstairs, but since we didn't get to it on the agenda downstairs, I have a very nice sound map that would actually show you how the sound carries through our geographic area. And with these 2 horns and an investment of about $30,000, we could notify everybody and their brother around us in a very, very significant way. Very nice new horns, and keep the old ones in place because they still work, and for the nostalgia purposes, have them painted up nice and red like they used to be, and keep them for the historicity of them. But that, my recommendation is that these, along with the new sirens.
You look it up. I like that word.
Yes.
I know I gotta type.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, don't apologize.
Yes. Along with the new alarms comes a software that not only would allow us to sound the alarms with the radios that the police and the firemen carry, but I could sound it from my cell phone, from my computer at home.
You could be a dangerous man in the middle of the night.
Yes, could. You know, the great thing about, but even more importantly, and this is the biggest thing, you know, NOAA doesn't ever send out their weather alerts at a convenient time. And so if we're asleep and we don't know there's a weather alert, then maybe nobody's sitting there to send it. Well, the great thing about the software that comes with these new alarms is you just set it up, and every time they put out one in our geographic region, the alarm sounds. And people will know to check their television, check their radio, check the website, and find that information about an impending weather alert. And to me, that's the greatest thing we can do, is to, you know, it's great for us to try to sound these alarms, but if we can't do it on a real consistent basis, and in the absence of our own dispatch center in the town, it's very difficult to do. But with this kind of software, we would know it's going to sound, and people are going to know that there is a weather alert or that there is some other type of alert that they need to pay attention to. So that's my recommendation, that we move forward in that direction, start sounding the alarms as we can, and look for better ways to be more consistent, and seek to get people to sign up, both with the cards, and one other option is to put a banner over Cumming Street, to get people to know about the website and to sign up for alerts. So that's my recommendation.
Did you have a thought, or does Mr. Kelly have a thought of where we might find the money for that, or how we might approach it?
Not at this time. We'd have to go look at the budget again, look at contingencies, and see. It might be a possibility of financing as well. We financed a large portion of the EVA final phase project. It might be something that could be added into that. And what I would propose that we do is let Mr. Bailey and I look into those possible funding sources and then report back to council at a later point.
Okay, and I think this is something that we would probably, really wish to move forward in a timely kind of way. We've had, a year ago with the tornado and everything that went along there. It's pretty clear that public safety and communication with the public needs to, be very high on our list. And I'm just real pleased, let me say on behalf of the council, that you were successful in getting those sirens working. I heard some theory that if you had a roll of baling twine and a roll of duct tape, you could make those things go. And it looks like you're very successful. Congratulations on that, because it is a great thing when you could save that kind of historic piece of of the town's past and put it into service. But I think we've had plenty of clear indications that there's a need for increased communication with the public about these safety matters.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bailey, would we leave the old ones operational as a backup or redundancy to these new ones?
Yes, and in fact, coming with this setup, there are devices that would allow us to work them into the same system. So they'll sound just like the new ones will with a new switching system. The software can talk to the switching system and turn that alarm on. So the new ones will sound and the old ones will sound right beside them. So,
well, is Federal Signal, are they okay with these old sirens? I mean, this is old technology.
They love them. In fact, well, truly, they say the technology is the same. It's just smaller, in a smaller box, amazingly. They chop the air just like the old sirens do. And chopping the air makes a whistle, and the faster you chop it, the higher it gets. So yes, in fact, they're very impressed with our sirens, and every time they've come out, they take pictures of them, they ooh and ah over them, and truly, they are a piece of history. And I think they were excited about the opportunity, if we couldn't get them to work, to make them work themselves. They wanted to take them down and restore them. But I truly believe they're in fully good working order.
Except for the Bellas one, which
Except
maybe we can work a little trade with them on the Bellas one.
Yeah, the Bellas one's the only one that's...
Well, and I will tell you that if you get all those, since you got those to work and everything, I think you'll probably go down in historicity.
Yeah.
It is a word. I looked it up.
It is a word?
It is a word.
I try not to make up words when I'm standing before council, but every now and then...
It's in the Webster's Dictionary. Look it up. I do have one comment related. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned the tornadoes, and Mr. Howard mentioned this, I think, either before the tornadoes or right after, but looking at developing a plan for emergency preparedness for the town. And I would think with these alarms and Abingdon alerts is we have a plan if it's a tornado or whatever, or escapee that's loose in your neighborhood, Greg's neighborhood, your neighborhood, is say, hey, hunker down, stay home, or in the event of a tragedy, hey, go to the Coombs Center, we have an emergency shelter, Red Cross, or whatever, and we have a plan for the community, because, we'll probably have another issue again, whatever it might be.
Well, that's the one thing you can count on. And I had a member of the public comment to me, I guess it was a little before the tornado, that the question was, where do they go? Right. And that needs to, be clear and have shelters designated and everything as well. But getting the word out to people that there's a problem is step number one. And so if you folks could, yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to say, in light of the contractual amount, and this is the company we currently have under contract to do this, if they can manipulate the existing contract to take this into account, I would go ahead and recommend that the council authorize me to do that. And
For financing it, is that what you're talking about?
For financing it, and that would definitely expedite the process, especially if we've got those folks here close by right now, or within, I guess they've gone back now, but if we can get them back fairly quickly, we might be able to get this system in place here within the next short period.
All right.
I would so move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now if I understand the motion correctly, it's basically that we would authorize our town manager and staff to basically enter into negotiation or contract with Federal Signal to, in essence, put this system into place and with appropriate funding.
That's correct.
Financing.
And basically try to
What he
build
said.
it into our existing contract that we
For
have.
financing.
Financial package, yes.
Financial package.
Okay, and I think, is everybody clear on what we're doing here? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion about it? Ms. Rosenbaum, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Barry?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, and we didn't hear anything from Vice Mayor Lowe, but I bet she thought it was a good idea.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, very good. Thank you, ma'am. All right, thank you, Mr. Bailey. Okay, that brings us to item number 3, which is consideration of authorization of the town manager to obtain a feasibility study for the location of a conference hotel within the town limits. Mr. Kelly, would you care to give us a brief overview of that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, if you'll recall, this has been an ongoing discussion that we've had for several years now about the town needing to have a conference hotel located somewhere within the town limits, with the possibility of a medical school on the forefront, the possibility of sports complexes on the forefront. It seems to me that we ought to take the first initiative and move out to try to obtain a feasibility study. We have met with some of the possible funding agencies that have dealt with similar conference hotels. One that comes to mind is in the city of Stanton, and we have been told by at least DHCD anyway that it would be a good idea if the
That's
town...
the Department of Housing and Community Development.
That's correct. We've been told by them that it is probably a good idea that if a feasibility study is done, that it be one that is done that is owned by the town of Abingdon rather than from private business or entity. As such, we have at least one estimate right now of about $22,000 for such a study. It is my opinion, as I put in my manager's report, that this, given the economic impact that it would have to the town, should be a matter that gets referred to our Industrial Development Authority and authorize them to proceed with obtaining the procuring the feasibility study under their guidelines, and then report back to the council at a later point in time with the findings of those guidelines, and then we will move on to the second phase of that, and assuming that it would be feasible, we would be looking to go out to find out who out there is a developer who would be interested in the project and how the project would be funded. So what I would be asking tonight is that you authorize me to refer this matter to the Industrial Development Authority to hire out a feasibility study, which we would ultimately pay for. We may ultimately be reimbursed for that study at some point down the road, but it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000, I would imagine would be a fair estimate.
So basically, this particular project would come under the purview of the Industrial Development Authority. Essentially, the town of Abingdon would be paying for the study, or it might be reimbursed by another source in the future. Is that what we're saying?
That's correct, but everything would flow through the Industrial Development Authority. Even if town were to fund the feasibility study, we would basically be giving funding to the Industrial Development Authority.
And if we give this funding to the Industrial Development Authority, would the funding come from council contingency, or do we have money budgeted?
We have no money budgeted. It would have to come initially from council contingency to make this happen. I have real expectations that ultimately the town would recover the money if we had an interesting party. Once the study was done that wanted to develop this, I think they would want to buy our study from us.
So basically, we would need at the present time to authorize or ask the Industrial Development Authority to move forward with this project, and that the council would commit, say, up to $25,000 of its own contingency fund for the moment for use for that purpose, with the hopeful expectation it would be reimbursed in the future by a third party.
That's correct.
Okay. Is there any discussion about that matter, or anybody care to make a motion?
Just a question. Doesn't the IDA have the authority to borrow its own money, even though we pay the bill, quote unquote?
It does, yes.
So why are we giving them the money if they can borrow their own
Because
money?
they also have to be able to pay it back.
Well, they can borrow it. I'm trying to get the thing off the ground just as soon as
You're
possible.
just saying this is a way to expedite it versus going through the normal procurement process,
Well, they still have to go through their procurement process.
but not the town.
But if they are given money, appropriated money by the town, they at least have a working budget that they can work within. If they borrow the money, sure, they can borrow the money, or they can actually apply for grants for the money. But that might mean that this project, the feasibility study, doesn't get off the ground for another couple, 2 or 3 months down the road.
Yeah.
That's the pros and cons to doing it either way.
Well, I think the number we read in your report was 22,000, so I'd move that we appropriate 22,000 from council contingency, direct it to the Industrial Development Authority for the feasibility study for the possibility of a conference hotel in the town limits of Abingdon.
Mr. Kelly, do you think 22,000 is sufficient, or do you need a little more flexibility?
Well, 22 is a number of one consultant that has been discussed, and, it depends on whether the Industrial Development Authority is comfortable with that one consultant.
Well, since there's a motion on the floor, I'll second that, Jason, and then we can have a discussion about it if you want to.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to authorize providing the Industrial Development Authority with $22,000 in funds to be used for the purpose of procuring a feasibility study for a conference hotel to be located in downtown Abingdon. And I'm not going to restate that one again. But,
Mr. Mayor, I would like to modify my motion to make it 25,000.
Okay, and we have a request to modify the motion. Would you modify your second, sir?
Absolutely.
Very good. And again, we're talking about $25,000 that we would commit for that purpose. Is there any further discussion, Mr. Howard or Mrs. Lowe? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mr. Barry?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing that project move forward. It offers great possibility for our town. We have passage of resolutions. A resolution of the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, supporting a grant application to the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development's 2013 Industrial Revitalization Fund. This originally was developed by Mr. Coward, our Director of Economic Development, who is not able to be with us this evening. I believe Mr. Kelly is going to comment about this and walk us through it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is an industrial revitalization grant. I believe the governor had earmarked a little over $1 million to be divided out among localities across the state for targeted areas that had industry there at one time, and could be rehabilitated or revitalized for one reason or another. We had targeted some time ago the area down around the Park Street and Deadmore Street area as a particular location. This application is for $310,000 in money. It is also being made in conjunction with another grant application that we have pending that was tabled last time at the Tobacco Commission for $250,000 for this same project. The Tobacco Commission had ultimately encouraged that perhaps we pursue this type of funding along with our application with the Tobacco Commission. We are not obligating ourselves to any particular project at this point in time. We've just identified an area, and ultimately before the town would be obligated for any match that would be associated with either this particular grant or the grant with the Tobacco Commission. We would have to be sent acceptance documents from those granting authorities, and we would have to execute those documents. So this is just getting in a line to try to get the money to determine if it is available for use at this location, and if it is, at a later time the council would determine whether or not we want to participate in it and actually put other town money toward the project in terms of a match.
All right, Council, do you have any comments about that? Mrs. Lowe, any comments?
No, Mr. Kelly clarified everything that I was concerned about. I was concerned about the wording in the resolution itself because I was afraid that would actually commit the town to the project, but he has clarified that, so I'm all right.
Okay, anybody else? Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve this resolution.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second that we approve the resolution that's before us for our consideration. Any further comment? Ms. Rosenbaum, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Hurwitz?
I will respectfully abstain. There's a possibility that I could financially benefit from this in some manner. Whether or not that I would, I have no idea, but I just would not, I don't want to put myself in the line of fire on that.
As I understand it, you own property that is in that neighborhood
I do.
or general
Right.
area of town.
I don't think that the part of the neighborhood that they're looking at is our part. I think it's the lower part.
Right.
But I'm not sure. So I just want to, I don't want to, I would rather abstain.
Very good. I'll accept that. Okay.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
And Mayor Moore?
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to consideration of change in the bylaws for the Go Green Committee. Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, you'll remember last month I brought before you some changes that were recommendations from the Town Go Green Committee. I'll go through those quickly again. One of the reasons we started looking into this is a problem we were having in regards to having a quorum for meetings, and we had 21 members, and so needing at least 12 people to be there to have a meeting was very difficult. So we looked at rewriting the bylaws to lessen that problem. The first major change is that the committee should have less than 7 or more than 13 members. That makes it easier for us to have a quorum. Within that, 1/3 of them shall be town employees, which is pretty much the number we have already and had even with the 21 members. And then the town manager or his designee would be also a member. The second change is to create a sustainability coordinator responsible for carrying out the recommendations of the committee within the different departments and the properties in town. Third, in order to fill all vacancies, the clerk would notify the council 60 days prior to the end of someone's term, and the council would do just as they would with any other committee and appoint someone. But if the vacancy is to be filled by that of a town staff member, the town manager would make the recommendation to council on that eligible and qualified member of the town staff. We left in there the part in there on financial costs, that any member who incurs personal financial costs for any event sponsored by the committee and approved by majority vote of the eligible voting members shall be reimbursed by the town of Abingdon from the budget of the committee if such funds are available. That was necessary because of some problems we've had in the past with the Earth Day event. Folks have gone above and beyond with their own personal money, and it wasn't something that was voted by the committee at large. So we wanted to have some language in there about that. And the fifth one is in matters of time-sensitive and extraordinary nature, the allowance of electronic meetings through email, making some vote decisions, which the committee has pretty much done in the past when we have an event like Earth Day, just for some last-minute follow-ups. And they're not a quasi-judicial board, so they wouldn't be violating FOIA. And then the last thing is to recommend to the council a name change from Go Green to Sustain Abingdon. Sustain Abingdon is being used by more and more communities. Not Sustain Abingdon, but Sustain.
Yeah.
So the word sustain, it goes deeper into the meaning of what the committee's mission is. Not just making Abingdon an organization that creates a green presence, but it can sustain itself from within, through all the departments and even into the community. And then there's a list of, I think there's 12 there, members from the last meeting that recommended, or that were recommended from the committee with interest of remaining on. And those are John Dew from Public Works, Carol Doss, who's a citizen representative, Betty Edmondson, a citizen representative, John Holbrook from the Police Department, myself, Sherry Lieb from the Nature Conservancy, Tom McMullen, a citizen rep, Tennille Montgomery from Tourism, Sarita Moore from the Wastewater Treatment Plant, Nick Safe, a local business rep, and Kevin Sigmund, the town arborist, and then Rebecca Moody as the sustainability coordinator to act as the technical staff, similar to how I act toward planning, the Planning Commission, and the BA, Sean acts towards the BAR and so forth. Not a voting member, just someone who herds all the cats.
And what is Rebecca's other job with us?
She's right now the part-time environmental planner.
Okay. All right. The terms of office, we have a couple of people designated for 2 years. What would the regular term of office be?
That is addressed in here as well. The terms of office would be the recommendation would be 2 4-year terms for the members, just like we do for Planning Commission, and we're trying to get to that with the BAR recommendations. But we would need to stagger everything just so we don't have a mass exodus of members at one time.
Okay. Council, your thoughts on this matter? I'll entertain a motion. Let's not be shy.
I'll make a motion to approve these changes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the recommended changes to the board, or to what has been known as the Abingdon Go Green Commission. Any further discussion?
Just one question, Garrett.
Startle us.
Reimbursement money for people, is that going to come out of the Go Green budget?
Yes. Yeah, the language that we put in there says that anything that would be approved by majority vote of the eligible voting members shall be reimbursed by the town of Abingdon from the budget of the committee if such funds are available. Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Umpquist?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, and
He's next.
Bear with me here just a minute. I seem to have lost my agenda.
Garrett's up at the bar.
Okay, if you'll come forward here, please. All right. All right, bear with me again just a second, please. I seem to have gotten lost here in the...
It's on the top there.
Yeah, I had it. Come on. All right. Okay, the next item, we have actually matters not on the agenda, but I think we'll go ahead with the Board of Architectural Review, and then we can entertain anything from the public that might need to be brought before us, and that is consideration of the council to serve, and we also have basically a recommendation from the Board of Architectural Review Committee of how we should handle terms and other things. And Mr. Jackson, if you'll comment on that, please.
Sure. Over the past 13 months, the BAR has been working on revising the design guidelines which govern the historic district. And in so doing, they've also stumbled upon revising the historic preservation plan, which is the comprehensive plan for the historic district, which was last done in 1998. Now, the state doesn't require a revision like it does with the comp plan because historic preservation plans are simply at will. They're not required by the state. But they are in the process of reviewing that and making recommendations for that plan. Originally done by Phil Thomason of Thomason Associates in Nashville. These are pretty important times in the sense of getting the preservation plan together and fulfilling the recommendations of the comp plan in regards to expansion of the historic district, or at least the study of the expansion of the historic district. And in doing so, we found that we were going to lose 3 members in the middle of this. And this is one of the strongest boards we've ever had. In terms of their preservation mindedness, their experience with it. Mr. Giesler Mr. Boyd, and Mr. Owens will all exit the board in March of next year on the same day. So we would lose 3 of them at one fell swoop. And in the 3 of those, they all have preservation experience. Mr. Giesler has worked the state and federal tax credits, lives in a historic home. Mr. Boyd is an architect and specializes in historical architecture. And then Dr. Owens, as well as the other 2, is very strong in preservation. Betsy White is back on the BAR after several years, having gone off because of her term limits the first time around. And we all know her story as a strong preservationist. And then Mr. Berry has been on for the past 4 years. As the council rep, and has been a big part of the revisions of the guidelines. And the BAR wanted to see that if we start losing everybody, we not do it at one fell swoop like we mentioned earlier. So the recommendations as were dreamed up by the BAR were that Mr. Boyd as the architect, and the board is required to have an architect on the board, and they're hard to find who want to actually sit on that board. Peyton Boyd for 3 additional years, and then once he gets to that, he can go off. That would be his term. Mr. Giesler for 2 additional years, Mr. Owens for 1. Mrs. White will actually remain on with her current terms as previously appointed because she won't leave as they do, and then Mr. Berry for 2 additional years. The BAR respectfully requests that Mr. Berry remain on the board. In an email from Chairman Mike Owens, he stated, "I'd like to see Jason remain on the board at least to finish the historic district expansion. I feel a change in council person in the middle of the process may be difficult." The expansion he refers to is that which is alluded to in the comp plan that I talked about earlier. But that's the recommendations of the BAR as far as term limits in order to have a little continuity.
Okay, Council, what's your thoughts about this?
I think we sent this back to the Architectural Review Board, or the Board of Architectural Review, to give us their opinion on this, and I think they've come up with a very valid plan, and I think it looks like that puts 2 of them off, going off in 3 years, 2 of them go off in 2 years, and 1 goes off in 1 year, which will be Mike Owens. So I think that probably will, that will be able to fill those slots in a more continuous way to where that will have some equilibrium on that board, and not everyone will be going at one time.
I think we've also, discussed the fact that term limits also, on committees also apply to council members. And I think, a strong case is made for Mr. Barry's continuing on this, commission for another 2 years. And I would be, willing to support that. But I would also, if we chose to do it, have the record made that this was done because an extraordinary set of circumstances existed that, as a result of the specific recommendation of the Board of Architectural Review, that we took what, we recognized as an extraordinary action, or, not our usual procedure.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, in our email conversation, if you will, dialogue, I actually offered up a 1-year term to take the minimum. The chair said, no, I'll do it. You do 2 years, and that'll put you in the election cycle, and whoever the next council member will be can take that place.
I think that could make some sense.
So that was kind of the rationale.
Yeah, all righty. Mr. Howard, any thoughts about it?
No, I agree with you, Ed. I think we did do term limitations, and due to this circumstances that's been described here, I kind of concur with what you
Okay.
said.
All right. Vice Mayor Lowe.
We asked the VAR to give us a recommendation because of all of the term limits not on it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I would I guess we might want to have a motion. It's good to be a bit of an evening here, but we have a recommendation from the Board of Architectural Review concerning handling, terms of office, and broken out by specific groups of people. I'll entertain a motion regarding this. Perhaps the motion might be that we accept the recommendation of the Board of Architectural Review.
I'll so move.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the recommendation of the Board of Architectural Review as I've described previously. Hearing no further discussion, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
And Mayor Moore?
Aye, thank you. That brings us to matters not on the agenda. If there is any long-suffering or patient person who wishes to bring anything before the council at the present time, you're more than welcome. Okay, not hearing or seeing anybody who was able to move at this point in time. In the course of things, we had originally had a closed session on here to deal with appointments, but I think we've handled that, and that won't be necessary. Council, do you have anything you wish to bring before those that are assembled here this evening? Any reports, any comments? Okay. I don't either. I'll point out a couple of brief announcements of things that are coming up. In particular, on September the 8th, we have and is that this coming Saturday?
It is.
We have the red, white, and bluegrass, and there's somebody here that would like to make an informed comment on that topic right now, and you're more than welcome
Well, actually, we would love for everybody to come to that event, but there is an event on Thursday night that's not in the announcements that I wanted to mention. You want me
Okay.
to wait till you do the others?
Go right ahead.
Okay. It's in our inaugural First Thursday event. It's being held by, actually started by William King, and we do envision that it will be expanded, but there are, I think I counted 7 art openings, if you will, that will begin at 5 o'clock, and it'll go to probably 9 or 10 that evening. It's kind of an art walk, if you want, an art crawl. The trolley's going to be available to transport folks around, but Gallery Mallory, I don't know if you know where the Mallorys live on Main Street. She will be opening a gallery next month, but she's having a preview that night. William King Museum, Arts Depot, the Secret Garden Gallery, Zazzy's, Anthony's Desserts, House on Main, and Wolf Hills Brewing will all have art openings. And in addition to that, Bonefire will have a concert out back. And I had the name of the band on the tip of my tongue, but he was real excited about it. All I can remember, it has aquarium in the name. Does anybody know who that might be? Anyway.
The Age
and I think
Aquarium.
there's a $5 admission fee, but I guess William King didn't get this to you all, so I want to make sure everybody knew about that. So we anticipate that first Thursdays there's going to be a regular thing, and beginning October the 4th, fingers crossed, we're going to have some merchants that will be staying open late for some downtown shopping and some music and things like that. So
Yeah, thank you, Susan. I
Here,
know you worked hard on that.
Yes, ma'am, and we look forward to Thursday evening. Again, this Saturday, we have the Red, White, and Bluegrass concert, free admission for that. It will be at the Abingdon Market Pavilion and run from 5:30 until 9. On the 11th, with the Appalachian Trail Community Designation Ceremony, which I believe will be at 6 p.m. at the Abingdon Market Pavilion. Washington County Fair is opening up on the 10th, and I know our town attorney has played a key role in that over the years. September 14th through 16th, the Rhythm and Roots Festival in Bristol. Council work session, September the 19th at 6:30. September 18th and 21st, something dear to Mr. Humphrey's heart, the Over Mountain Victory Trail celebration will be at the muster grounds, and in particular on Saturday, September the 22nd, there will be a 10 a.m. dedication of the State Regents Project marker at the muster grounds.
And followed by that, a nice segue, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Events begin at 12:30 p.m., dedication at 3 o'clock, reception to follow, will be open to the public, and it is the exhibition dedication of the Over Mountain Victory Trail.
Right.
So-
That will be the new displays at the Blair Keller Interpretive Center.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, very good. And there's a nice little sidewalk that has appeared recently at Retirement, and
Wonderful
good
sidewalk.
things are happening over there.
Thanks, Mr. Dude.
Let's see, council will be going, let's see, this September 22nd, also the Wings and Wheels Show at Virginia Highlands Airport. Okay. September 23rd through the 25th, council will attend the annual Virginia Municipal League Conference in Williamsburg, Virginia. Our regular council meeting will be on the 1st. Barter Theater, October the 4th, we'll have an evening with Bill Cosby. The 5th through the 7th, we will be having the inaugural Abingdon Crooked Road Music Festival, sponsored by Heartwood and the Crooked Road at the Latcher Field, and I have high hopes for that event. And on the 17th of October, we'll have a council work session. Mr. Humphreys.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Kelly will need it. There's one other thing that Mr. Kelly missed.
What?
I neglected to mention earlier that Ms. Eisenhower received word from the county attorney during the past week that Washington County has presented us with a draft of a deed for the Breckenridge cabin to be moved, a quitclaim deed, which indicates that it can be moved to a site of our choice.
All right.
Might just
Very
mention
good.
that's at the library currently.
Yeah, the library is aware of it.
I mean, that's to people that may not know where it's located.
Oh, yeah. If anyone out there doesn't know where it's located, it's in the back parking lot of the Washington County Library.
And mobile homes aren't confined to modern phenomena either.
That's
are they?
right.
So, okay, anything else?
No.
Thank you all very much for being here, and we appreciate your interest and your patience.
Adjourn this puppy, Mr. Mayor.
We're adjourned.